everybody, I'm Nicole.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
Today, we welcome back our favorite friend.
It's Ashley!
Yay! So sit back and enjoy as we dive right in.
Doodaloo.
Now we're here with Ashley. Hooray!
Hooray!
Yay! For our annual check-in with Ashley and her exciting life on the water, and also just a report about what happened. Just tell us everything.
I think I have something really exciting for mostly Ashley, but maybe also our listeners.
Cool.
Ashley report, Ashley report, Ashley report. It's time for an adventure. Here we are with again, Ashley report.
That's amazing.
Any of our listeners who've seen the Octonauts will know that I did not make up the melody to that, but it's been in my mind.
Hey, you gotta use what you got, right?
Maybe we should start with a little introduction of Ashley, who she is, where she came from, why she's here, in case people
don't know.
Seen her on the podcast or heard her on the podcast before.
Haven't been around for the last 3 or 4 that I've done.
Yeah, doing this for a while.
I love it. There can be new people all the time.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about yourself, Ashley.
Well, I am a naturalist and a captain for Wild Whales Vancouver. This is coming to the end of my 13th year there.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that insane?
Yeah.
This has definitely been the longest I've been at any job for sure. But it's also a pretty cool job to have. I mean, with any job, there's trials and tribulations as well. But overall, getting to hang out with whales and cool marine wildlife and meeting people from all over the world is a pretty special thing to get to do for 13 years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how was your season?
This season was pretty amazing. This year was kind of wild. Howe Sound was like the place to go this year. I haven't had a chance to see like what the percentage of Howe Sound trips really is, but it feels like we were there for at least 50% of our tours.
Yeah.
Which is wild. Like, I mean, that just shows how much life has really come back to Howe Sound.
Yeah.
Like when I first started, Howe Sound trips were not really a thing, and then over the last few years, probably maybe 4 years prior to this year, Howe Sound has sort of been about 25% of our tours. So like Howe Sound or like the mouth of Howe Sound, English Bay, that kind of area. So just like close to Vancouver. But yeah, this year has just been ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
In a good way, of course. Although I definitely wish that we could have, when you guys came out, gone a little bit further out and not had whales so close by. But such is life when the whales are your boss.
Yeah. My children appreciated that I was home for bedtime.
And it was a short trip.
Yeah. And because it was pretty wet.
Yeah, it was a rainy day for sure.
So it was nice to not have like a long, fast traveling journey in the rain. Yeah.
It's really funny. I had 3 different like friend groups come out this year, and all 3 of the chosen dates that you guys chose were rainy.
Wow.
What is happening? How are you guys choosing all of the rainy days? Like, what is happening? But yeah, and then like the days around it were nice and beautiful.
Absolutely gorgeous. Of course. That's
how
it works.
Yeah. So it's just really strange coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it just means you guys have to come out again.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fine with me.
Clearly. Yeah. It was a really fun, delightful day. Like, it was so good.
Yeah, it was so much fun to have you guys on board. I just wish I could have shown you a little bit more. But that's always my problem. Is I always want to show, even on days where we have lots, I'm like, oh, I want to keep going. I tell my passengers I have a whale problem, and my whale problem is that I want to see as many whales as they want to see.
Yeah.
And probably more, in fact.
I am sure that your passengers, just like us, don't think that's a real problem.
Well, that's what I say too. I'm like, I don't have a problem with my whale problem.
Yep. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. It would only be a problem if you didn't have access to seeing whales, but
Exactly.
you do.
Yeah.
You're like, here, guys, here's some seals. I can't show you anything else.
So was it like we saw humpbacks in Howe Sound, and also like not just when we were with you? Every time Sarah and I took a ferry this summer, they were like, we just like looked up. Like there was a day we hadn't even left the terminal. We like climbed onto the sun deck, and like the first thing I looked out, and they were right there. And I was like, oh yeah, there they are.
Yeah.
Didn't even try.
For any locals, it's basically as you're pulling out on the ferry out of Horseshoe Bay, as you look to your left, right out front of White Cliff Park, that we saw humpbacks there every time we were in that area this summer.
Yeah. There was a day that we just like hunkered down because we had work to do, so we sat in the workstations, and we were already working like before it left. And I was sitting on my computer, and I saw someone like make a motion at the benches whenever we pulled out, and there was a whale. The people were like, there was no way I wouldn't have even noticed it. I was just like, this is insane. I've never had more fairy whale luck in my life than this summer. They were just always there.
Well, and that's like Howe Sound had at one point more than 10 humpback whales in Howe Sound.
Wow. It is not that big. Like I know it goes for a long time, but
yeah, like I mean, it used to be like if you had one or two in Howe Sound, that was an exciting day. But to have like 10 or more, and I'm pretty sure that there was a couple times where it was more than 10 in Howe Sound.
Anything in Howe Sound,
like,
was a big deal for a long time. Yeah.
And there was a couple of tea parties in Howe Sound too. Like it was just
nice.
Yeah.
Which again, for our listeners, not tea that you drink. I think our listeners would pick up on that, but just to be clear, we're talking about the big killer whales, formerly known as the transient killer whales, and when you see a whole bunch of them, you call it a tea party, and it's awesome.
Yeah, not the ideal thing to drink for sure.
No. Fishy.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get a chance to, I think, take any ferries across this season, so I didn't get to see them on the ferries. But yeah, I mean, it was just, we were getting lots of reports from the ferry captains to be like, there's whales here, and like it just, I think it made them more thankful to when we had whales and we would radio them to be like, hey, just so you know, like you might want to adjust course, or so many humpbacks. I did a count just like I did last year. I had 115 humpback whales that I was able to identify with like maybe five or so that were like unknowns that I wasn't able to identify. Yeah.
Wow. I thought you were going to say 115 encounters. But 115 individual
different whales.
And last year, so I just did a check too, just to see, because my colleague, I literally sent that message to my colleagues before we got on here, and I was like, this is how many whales that I saw. And they're like, well, I wonder what it's like. Like, I wonder how many was last year. And I was like, well, let me look that up, because I did those numbers. So I had 76 humpbacks last year.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. So it's a huge jump from last year. And only six of them were babies. So
were there new adults that you didn't know?
Yeah, so in total, including the babies, so I guess 20, not including the babies, there were, I don't think I've ever had a year where I've had this many whales that were new to me. So I had 26 new whales, 6 of them being the babies.
That's fascinating.
So 20 new adult whales to me.
What the hell was going on in Howe Sound?
It wasn't just Howe Sound, it was the Strait of Georgia, and
But and again, I think it's really important for context, like that 20 new whales, new to you whales, in some other parts of the world would not be a surprise. And
No.
in places where naturalists aren't as, I was going to say prolific, but that's not the right word.
I mean, we are pretty
experience. Experience. But you have been doing this for more than a decade, and you are out on the water almost every single day. So, like, if anyone in the area is going to know the whales, it's going to be you. And for that many to be new to you, that's particularly noteworthy.
Yeah. I mean, they're definitely not new to this area. Like, there's definitely been some that I've like heard, and I've been like, oh, I've never met that whale. I want to meet that whale. And I'm pretty sure there were a bunch that I didn't get to meet this year that were also new. So like, it was like new to me. So yeah, like it's just, I don't think we encountered any, or I hadn't heard any that like were new this
Which
year.
makes sense, I guess.
But some that are like newer to the area that aren't like normally here for sure.
Everybody's just finally picking up on the gossip that
Maybe.
BC's Howe Sound's the place to be. Salish Sea,
Great
place to be.
for food, yeah. Well, my orca family sightings went down a little bit this year, though.
But was that because you were in Howe Sound with humpbacks most of the time?
Quite possibly, honestly. Yeah, I think that's probably a pretty big part of it. The humpbacks blocked us for a lot of the year. But last year we had 38 different bigs, families, and solos. This year, 32. So it's not like a huge drop, but it's definitely a drop.
Yeah, and the bigs were around all summer. It wasn't it was a pretty normal or higher year for big sightings in the Salish Sea as a whole.
Yeah.
Like it's just been climbing for the last 8 years.
Yeah, and Howe Sound was actually pretty good for orca sightings this year too.
Not when we were there.
I know, I'm so sorry. I tried to talk to them. Grays was my most sighted humpback whale.
Okay, I thought you were going to talk about gray whales, and I was confused there.
I did get to see gray whales as well. And actually, what's really cool is in the spring, we had more gray whales than normal off Sturgeon Bank and Roberts Bank. In fact, I had a day where there was we had 3 together, and then there was 2 further to the south. I was like,
that's
what is
a lot
happening?
of gray whales.
Yeah. And then we sadly had one hanging out off of Point Grey for most of the summer, for at least a couple months. And yeah, it's not a great situation. We don't know what's happened to it. We don't know if it's made its way back out or if the unfortunate has happened to it, but it was looking skinny for sure, and that's not really a place that they're supposed to be at that time of year. So it was July and August, and yeah, not ideal. Also, really cool, we had legs. We had Pacific right-sided dolphins in Howe Sound this year.
Oh my god.
Oh, I know. And not a small group. There was 30 of them.
The best.
Yeah. I was like, what is happening in Howe Sound? What is this life? What is happening? Yeah, it was really cool.
When was that?
That was, I think it was early. Let me double check here.
Oh, I remember them being around a lot.
Yeah,
in May.
I remember hearing about it.
April, end of April, and probably into May. Yeah, probably the beginning of May as well. I only had two days with them. Yeah, and they were around a bunch more, but it was just, the whales that we found weren't where they were a couple times. So
yeah.
If there were legs in the Salish Sea when I was on a boat, I would probably throw a mutiny if we didn't see them.
You gotta go. Yeah,
it's so true.
Your boats, because you would take me there. You would support me in that.
Yeah, I would, of course.
You would understand how really, really, really exciting it is.
I do. I tried to get the captains to go every time.
So going back to the humpbacks, Tell us
Mhm.
about Grays, and that was going to be my next question of like how many of these humpbacks you saw in House Sound, how long did they stay? Like I know the ones that we saw, they were hanging out there for quite some time.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a rotation. Like there was some that were like pretty consistently there, and then there would be like a few others that came in and changed places, and then those ones that weren't there would be back. And so it was a I don't know, it was really interesting. Grays was in there a fair bit, Smiley was in there a fair bit. One of the really cool pairings that I saw in House Sound was Big Mama and Split Fin. So Split Fin is Big Mama's 2006 baby.
Oh my god.
And I guess it's not the first time they've been seen hanging out together. I think a few years ago they were spotted together as well, but like it's not super common for us to see moms and previous babies hanging out together.
Yeah.
It's not like unheard of anymore, but like it's still not a common scenario. But what was also very, very cute was Split Fin and Split Fluke, who used to hang out all the time together when they were younger, in my early whale watching days. They hung out for like a week together.
Aww.
And then they would like just depart, and then every once in a while you'd see them together again. So it was really funny because on the radio, every time somebody spotted them and they were hanging out, nobody gave their individual names anymore. They were just we're hanging out with the splits.
Aww.
And we know too now that like obviously we've known Split Fluke as a female for a while, but I think it was last year I got a photo of Split Fin's belly. So he is a boy. So I was sort of joking that he was like trying to show his childhood friend some of his moves to see if she thought that they were worth using.
Aww. She's the whale next door.
Yeah.
Totally.
That's cute.
But yeah, I mean, there were so like obviously I had 115 different humpbacks that I identified. So there was so many interesting pairings. Obviously the pairings would shuffle up, and then you would see different animals together, and then maybe a day or two later you might have the same ones that you first had together, or completely new ones in the area, and you couldn't find the ones that you'd had before, which is always really fun. I mean, I think with the humpbacks, it's just that there's clearly enough food.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, and I've been hearing from some of the fishermen that there was a ton of anchovy in House Sound. Even people,
and the herring spawn was insane this year.
Yeah. So I think there's just been a ton of food for them. Plus, the krill seems to be plentiful for them as well. Oh man, I got some really epic poop shots this year, striking in some rolling seas, and it looks very artistic.
Ooh.
Wow.
You can blow it up and sell it for millions of dollars.
Honestly,
on the art galleries.
It's a really cool shot. There's a few shots that I'm like, when I got it, I was really really excited.
I love that. It would be like good, I don't know, like fancy bathroom art.
Yeah. So fun.
It's just little red specks in a blue wave.
So anything aside from the tea parties, anything else fun happening with the bigs this year? They were just more spread out, but also in House Sound, but also everywhere.
Yeah, well, it was really interesting. We had some really funny things going on with them. So the T83s. So T83 left her mom with a brand new baby. Just
wow.
Yeah, don't know why. And then not only did she leave with a brand new baby, T71B ended up basically leaving her kids with T86A3 and disappeared for weeks. Like So they were just kind of wandering around Howe Sound. The 124A2s kind of joined up with 86A3s too, and like maybe we're helping babysit, who knows. And then it was really funny because one day we didn't see the 86A3s, but we had T86A1 and her family, and she was now babysitting the 71B kids. So it was like sister came in to take over, and I don't know where 71B went. I had talked to Gary about it, and he's like, she might have left to go have her baby. That happens sometimes. But I don't know if anybody has seen her since then or not. It was just wild.
So strange.
Yeah. So the 86A3s and the 124A2s were like probably the most seen whales or big orca in and around Howe Sound for sure. I did get to hang out with my boyfriend a couple times.
Yeah.
Actually, it was really funny. The day before, or the day that my last day on the water before I was off for a couple days for my birthday, he showed up.
Early birthday present.
He's a good boyfriend. He made sure he was there for me.
Birthday.
Yeah.
Tell the listeners who your boyfriend is so they don't think that you have a human boyfriend who's terrible.
No, my boyfriend is Chainsaw. He's the best. Although I think he's mad at me right now because the last few times he's been around, I haven't had a chance to get to him. So I think it's because I haven't gotten his tattoo yet. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
because
season plans.
He was around in the spring and then also just recently as well.
Yeah, he's. I mean, he in the spring, and he's kind of been back and forth throughout the season. Like, I mean, we didn't see him like a ton, but him and his mom, I personally had them 6 times.
Wow.
But I know that they've definitely been around more than that.
Yeah, I feel like he was more sporadic, but that just might be my feelings from what I see on social. So
yeah.
What about my boyfriend Stanley?
Oh, so he's been around. How many times did I? Oh, actually, I saw them quite a bit. Over 10 times I saw those guys.
Nice.
Ooh. Yeah. And they actually for a bit joined up with T86A3 and her baby as well. Yeah, it was a really weird scenario with the 71B kids. I was just like, what is happening? But it was a long time that they, it was just, she was there at the beginning, like the first few visits with 86A3. But then, yeah, all of a sudden it was just the kids. It was very weird. And I was like, why are you as a new mom babysitting somebody else's babies at the same time? She's a tough cookie, that one.
Anything else fun? And did you see any minkies?
I did not see any minkies. However, a minkie was spotted off of Sandheads once this year.
Yay.
Yeah, it was super. I mean, it always feels like the Strait of Georgia is like a minkie free zone. Boundary Pass is like where you can see them, and then further north. But yeah, it was. I think might have been one of the Vancouver Whale Watch guys got to see and photographed it. So they sent it to see if there was an ID on it. I don't know if they ever found out. Not whale related, but I did get to see a black bear on one of my tours this year.
That's very cool.
That was really cool. That's the first time in 13 years. So that was really awesome. In Howe Sound.
Oh, jeez.
It's the place to be.
It apparently is. I mean, it's so beautiful up there. So hopefully next year will be similar. But at the same time, as much as I love Howe Sound, I definitely would like to boat a little bit further.
You don't even get to really even get a chance to see harbor porpoises if you're going to Howe Sound every day.
I mean,
sometimes
we've had tons of harbor porpoise like in English Bay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I got any days up at halibut with like the harbor porpoise hordes, which are some of my favorites. So see, there's some bad in my good.
Oh yeah, that sounds horrible. You poor girl.
Oh, I didn't get to see just a lot of harbor porpoises. Only a few harbor porpoises.
Only a few. Well, when you got the few, it's harder to be able to photograph them.
That's true.
That is my torture. Not being able to photograph something that I'm seeing.
Did you get to see any resis?
Yes, actually, only one day, which I mean, thankfully. It was a big group of them. I think it was a mix of definitely some L's. I don't know if there was any J's or K's because I didn't get a whole lot of great photos. My first photo, open saddle patch. I was like, well, we gotta go. It's like I don't even have a few minutes to figure out like to try to.
What if
Yeah.
I didn't? No, you would never pretend, but you're just like, oh
No.
man, why do I have to know these guys so well?
Yeah. It's like, why did the first photo I take have to be an open saddle patch? But luckily I was a naturalist that day. So even as we were departing, I was trying to take more photos, but they were pretty far out and spread out. So that was
In case there are newer listeners, I think it's important to note that this is something that is like so near and dear and important to you and the hearts of every naturalist and every researcher in the area, that like as much as we of course want to see the southern residents and want to, and there are research vessels that have special permits to be able to do that. Would you like to just briefly mention, because I know we've talked about it on other episodes, but just in case again, because new people are joining us whenever, what does the open saddle patch mean? What does that tell you? And why did you leave? And all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So our southern resident, so saddle patch is the gray area just behind and below their dorsal fin. And in the saddle patch, there can be any number of different scars or scratches or open black patches that help us identify who they are. The dorsal fin obviously helps as well. So the size and shape of that, any nicks or notches out of it, help us tell who they are. But none of our big Zorca, none of our marine mammal eaters have open black sections in their saddle patch. They definitely have scars and scratches, but they don't have any open black patches. Whereas our southern resident killer whales and our northern resident killer whales can have open black patches. They don't all have it, but they can have it. And we don't see northern residents down here very often. So generally, especially in the summer months, if you see an open black patch in the saddle patch, it is probably a southern resident killer whale. They are unfortunately a critically endangered species, although I think the DFO doesn't like us to say that they're critically endangered. They only want us to say that they are endangered.
Nobody's critically endangered. They're just endangered.
They're just endangered, yeah. But there is currently, I believe, only 73 of them. Yeah, unfortunately, there was a new baby born, and they're already... I don't know if they've officially...
Not yet. There was no report in the email that was yesterday.
But there is a high suspicion that that baby is potentially no longer with us, sadly. Yeah. So our southern residents are not doing super good. They are the fish eaters. Salmon, Chinook salmon in particular, is their most important source of food. I don't like it when people suggest that it's their favored food, because it's not favored. It is what they've evolved to eat. It is their most important source of food.
Yeah. If nachos stopped existing, I would be sad, but I wouldn't die.
Yeah. Exactly. And they do, it seems like they might be finding other sources of food now, but it's a slow process for them because culturally that is what they eat. It's a lot harder for species that do have cultural systems to adapt than species that are more instinctual, unfortunately. But yeah, so our southern residents, because they are, I'm still gonna say it, a critically endangered species, we have rules in in BC, Transport Canada and DFO I think would like those rules to change again. But right now, as it stands, whale watching vessels have been given special permissions if they've agreed to the terms to watch big Zorka at 200 meters if we agree not to watch the southern resident killer whales. And the other option is we can watch any orca, but we would have to give them a 400-meter distance, which is what the general public has to do. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of enforcement out on the water, so that's we'd like to see the public keeping to the appropriate distance, but we're not an authority out there. We're not going to force people or yell at them for being too close unless they're closer than we are. Then we will.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the southern residents are not doing super hot, and unfortunately, they are listed as a declining population. So that is why, as soon as I was able to see that open open black patch in the saddle patch, that it was an instant, this is what we have, and now we have to go. My guests were really excited to see them nonetheless, so that was nice.
I definitely be really excited to see them too.
Yeah,
even if it's just a glimpse, I think it would be exciting. Yeah.
And I definitely gave the whole, it's a real privilege to see these guys because we aren't allowed to watch them. So any glimpse we get is really special. But I always do kind of hit home, as special as this is, we don't know kind of what side of the line we're on. Are we watching these guys recover, or are we watching this population disappear on us? And it's none of us know, but as we're not really getting any babies surviving, it's definitely feeling a little bit more negative lately.
Yeah, it feels like it's been a while since there's been much positive news on that front, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, we've all been sort of cautiously optimistic in with previous babies being born, and but yeah, I think the cautious optimism is just caution now.
Yeah.
Not the happiest topic to talk
I was
about,
just gonna say,
but very important.
But yeah, definitely. Where are you at distance-wise with humpbacks now?
It's still 100.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm like, everything's changed so much. It's hard to
keep. They changed it a little bit, so it is 100. But if it's a mom and calf, then it's 200.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's sleeping whales, which isn't always easy to tell, it's supposed to be 200 meters as well.
It seems like it would just be easier for everybody if it was just 200, but
I would rather we stay at 100.
Of course, yeah.
I get that for sure, but I think the more that there's a variety of distances, the more confusing it is, and people just throw their hands up and don't care. I was meaning in particular for general public, not professional.
Yeah. Know what the rules are, know the behaviors.
Yeah. And then, there's days where the whales don't care that you've got those rules.
Oh, yeah. Surrounded by a sea of humpbacks.
Yeah, the humpbacks are the worst. At least with the orca, if they choose to come by you, it's like a flyby, checkout. But the humpbacks are haha, you're mine now. I think the researchers are trying to change the terminology from mugging to boat directed behavior, but I still really like the term mugging. It's they are literally holding us hostage. We're not going anywhere. We're shut down waiting for them to move off. So I think a mugging is an appropriate term, but
See, I just made the connection that it's related to that kind of mugging.
What did you think it was before?
Mugging for the camera was where I thought it was.
A little bit as well.
There is that, yeah. But that's just what I thought it always was. So maybe that's some of the rationale for if you don't have that context of what the behavior is. The name of the behavior might not indicate what's happening.
I think there was some like that they felt it was like a negative connotation or something like that, but I don't know. Everything just gets more and more politicized on every front. So like I don't think the whales care what we call it.
No, we're still gonna
they definitely don't. I don't really think the researcher's name is any better than bugging.
No, and I think it's actually to me it's more confusing, but
and clinical.
Yeah, but it doesn't, I don't know. It makes me think that the boat is, I don't know. I guess it's not really the boat like doing
clinical in that like vague like euphemism kind of way.
What does that mean? Yeah. I mean, I guess what does mugging mean as well, but what's in a name?
Excessively close to a boat.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all the naturalists will continue to call it a mugging. So
and that's like worldwide. So
I think until somebody comes up with a better name, not just a more technical name.
It's gotta be catchy, you know.
Before we continue with the rest of the episode, we want to take a moment to tell you about how you can support our podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales.
You can join us by becoming a patron at patreon.com/whaletales for $1 a month at the porpoise level, $5 a month at the dolphin level, or $10 a month at the whale level.
And each level comes with a variety of perks, including postcards, extra stories, extra extended interviews, answering polls, my favorite thing to do, producing your own fun flip or fact segment of the pod, and extra podcasts, because you just can't get enough. This month, for our dolphin and whale level patrons, we have an extra special Journal Club podcast episode available for you, all about whale menopause.
Ooh, so fun.
Thank you so much to all of our patrons. You are truly amazing.
Indeed. If you aren't able to support us financially, there are still lots of things you can do to help us out. You can leave us a rating or a review on your podcast platform of choice, like basically wherever you're listening to us right now. This will help people find the podcast, and you can also just tell your sciencey, cetacean-y, podcast-loving friends about the podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales so that they can listen along too.
You can also follow us on social media at whaletales_org. Plus, you can send us your feedback so that we can keep making the podcast even better.
My fun fact was actually suggested by a colleague of mine because I was like, oh goodness, I gotta think of another one. And it is something that's really cool, and I definitely should have thought of it as well. And I do talk about it to a certain degree on the boats with passengers. But my fun fact is that whale poop, since we've talked about whale poop today, fights climate change.
That I knew that already, but it's still really cool. Yeah.
No, it is so cool.
And that during our whaling days, there was a global decline in the plankton population because there wasn't enough whale poop.
Circle of life.
Yeah, that's why I get really excited about whale poop.
Yeah. So do you want to tell the listeners why, or just leave it to that blanket statement?
Mic drop.
I mean, I kind of like a mic drop moment. Yeah, I mean, plankton basically is like the trees of the sea, sort of, and absorbs carbon dioxide. And basically every second breath you take comes from the ocean.
It comes directly from whale poop. Remember that beautiful thing about how you're sharing the breath with the whales? Your breath is full of their poop. And that's our new tagline.
New take.
Your breath is full of their poop. Do you know, that sounds like something that Moira Rose would say. I can hear it in her voice.
Oh man, that turned out really well.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like a little poem. We can write it underneath your giant framed art whale poop.
I love it.
That we're gonna hang in an art gallery. Yeah.
We should create t-shirts.
Nice. if you're listening and you want to buy a whale poop shirt that says their poop is in your mouth, then let us know on all of our socials, every single one of them.
We can just all wear matching shirts to Symposium, and it'll be
I love it. I love it. This is the wildest idea we've ever had.
And we've had some wild ones.
yeah. Okay, before we get to asking you about your favorite encounter, I actually have a surprise.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness.
So this has nothing to do with Ashley, and not even in the Salish Sea. In September, in Iceland, there was a juvenile humpback called Bird who was entangled, and the entanglement was spotted by...
Was it a whale watching boat?
Yes, it's the only whale watching boat that is in this part of Iceland that I can't pronounce, but it was Judith. The answer is Judith.
Okay, there we go. That makes so much more sense.
And when Judith saw this entanglement and she got back to land, she said, "Who are you going to call when you see an entangled humpback in Iceland?" Can anybody guess?
Not the Ghostbusters.
No, that is incorrect. It was WhaleWise, our friends. So this morning, I talked to Judith and Flo and Petra from WhaleWise about the day that they saw this humpback Bird, is the name of the humpback, and what Judith saw and what WhaleWise was able to do and how they helped with the successful disentanglement of this whale.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Okay, so now we're here with a very exciting group of people who are about to tell us a super interesting, unique encounter they had with a humpback named Bird in Iceland earlier this fall. So we're going to start with Judith, a friend of the pod. Judith, can you tell us about your day and what happened when you first encountered this humpback?
Yeah, so we were working, I was working on our whale watch in Holmavik. So I work for Laukiturs in Iceland. We have two different places we whale watch. One of them is Snæfellsnes Peninsula, but the other is Holmavik, which is mostly humpbacks up in the West Fjords, and it's a fairly remote place. So we're the only whale watch boat, and it's a bit off the beaten track. And we were just out on what was a regular tour with quite a few humpbacks around. And this was, a few weeks ago, wasn't it? In the fall, as you would say, from North America, in the autumn. And at that time of year, they're usually doing a little bit of long lining in the fjord. But I have to say, Iceland doesn't have a huge amount of fixed fishing gear, and whale entanglement there seems fairly rare compared to many other places like New England and other places I've worked. And anyway, we were following a few whales, and there was one whale that started acting strangely very, very close to where we could see a buoy or a buoy, depending on where you're from, not a buoy splashing, but an actual fishing buoy in the water. And the whale was actually starting to act very strangely, but I didn't really know what was going on. We were just kind of watching, but the buoy stayed there, so I thought, oh well, maybe the whale's just a bit weird. But then after a couple of minutes, we actually saw the buoy disappear, and obviously the whale brought the buoy underwater, and then of course I realized that it had just got entangled, and I'm absolutely amazed because there's so little fixed fishing gear there. It's not something I've ever seen even a whale entangled in Iceland before, let alone actually watched it happen. And I didn't get very good pictures, but I snapped a couple, and luckily they were good enough to see that this was a young humpback that we'd been seeing there quite a lot, and it has a really distinctive mark on its tail that looks like a seagull. So we had started calling it Bird, and now Petra, who will talk next, I guess, we started calling it Freebird after the rest of the story. But anyway, we waited for a bit, didn't see the whale again. I was a bit worried that having a whale watch boat there would stress it out even more than it was already stressed out. So we finished the tour, And for about half an hour or something, after it happened, the whales were behaving really strangely. So I wondered if Bird was making crazy sounds underwater that the other whales were picking up, because they all started diving strangely. And then as soon as we got back to the dock, I contacted these guys who are going to come next and tell the good part of the story, hopefully, who are from WhaleWise, who are a non-profit that are doing research in my whale watching area.
Amazing. Thank you, Judith, for that. Okay, Flo and Petra from WhaleWise, who we've talked to before, but you are new to the pod, so you want to introduce yourself and then tell us what happened next with this story?
Sure thing. So, hello everyone to the podcast. I'm Peter. I'm an early marine scientist and research officer at WhaleWise. And we were having this really extra unique event on this autumn day, really, in Iceland. We usually actually do most of our research that is related to Scars from Above project that we currently do. We usually drone mainly in the Steingrímsfjörður area, but actually on this day, we were quite far away. We were in the Ísafjörður area, droning for another pack of whales that day, when we just heard the call from Judith about this entangled whale, which obviously all of us struck us and made us very concerned. And basically, we hopped into the action and tried to put together a plan of what we could do. I'll let maybe Flo to introduce herself as well before we get more into the detail.
Yeah, so I'm Flo. I'm a research and engagement officer with WhaleWise. I've been with WhaleWise for I think 5 or 6 years now, doing research in Iceland. But yeah, so this day was a really crazy day for us because we've never actually seen an actively entangled whale before. We had only ever, because our work, the Scars from Above project, is looking at the scarring that's left behind by the entanglements that these whales experience. And so we've seen evidence of entanglement, but we've never actually witnessed it firsthand. So it was a really crazy day for us. But yeah, so I guess the first we knew about it, like Petra said, we got a call from Judith, and we were really concerned for Bird. But like Petra said, we weren't actually in Steingrímsfjörður that day. We were in Ísafjörður, which is about an hour and a half away. So we decided to immediately head back to Steingrímsfjörður to see if we could help at all. And then I think a few hours later, we actually got a message from our neighbor in Steingrímsfjörður, who's a fisherman. And he sent us a video and he said, "Oh, I've seen the whale. It's near the harbor." So in the video, you could see the whale. You could see that it was breathing, but it was just kind of floating at the surface, not being very active at all. And you could see the buoy was floating a little ways away from it, but still near it. And so that was really important information for us because that gave us information about where the whale was and what was going on with it. So that was really important. So then at that point, we tried contacting different people at the government in Iceland to try to get a rescue set up. And so we started contacting them, and we got in touch with someone from the
Animal welfare in the Iceland.
Yeah, I can't quite remember what that branch is called, but they're
the veterinary kind of association or something, aren't they?
Yeah. So we got in contact with someone there, and they had gotten information from a few witnesses that the whale had actually died. So that came as a shock to us because we had just gotten a video of this whale clearly breathing. So that was really shocking. And so we were really concerned. What if this whale has died? But then we weren't really sure if those accounts were true because it's hard to tell if a whale is alive or dead if you don't know a lot about whales. So we still had hope that Bird was still alive. So then we headed back towards Steingrímsfjörður, and we were hoping that we would find Bird there relatively close to land and that we could observe it. So yeah, I don't know if Petra, you want to keep going with the story?
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, so we knew more or less the location where the whale was spotted the last time, thanks to our fisherman friend who took the video. So we arrived to that particular location, and obviously we then started the usual everyday stuff for us, and that is searching for the whales. But this time, obviously, we knew that this particular whale bird must have probably spent lots of time at the surface. Hence, the blows would not necessarily be very visible, which is obviously quite difficult if you're searching for whales that are not really having visible blows. Luckily, at the same time, from the video, we knew that having this whale been entangled, it has the two buoys attached to it in some sort of way. And these buoys, luckily, are colorful, right? So instead of searching for the whale itself, we were actually searching for the red and yellow buoys that were close by it. That way, we were actually quite successful at finding the whale quite soon after we arrived to the location, and then basically put together a plan of trying to drone the whale as soon as possible in the least sort of stressful way, i.e. Flo actually was the first person who would fly, and then I also flew over. We did 2 flights together, basically to obtain a little bit more information about the entanglement, where the whale was entangled, how much, and potentially the other raw injuries of the animal. And obviously, as I said, we tried to do it in the best way possible to not stress the animal that was already in sure stress for a very long time, plus 5 hours at least. So what we really tried is to keep the drone very far away from the animal. We used basically just our zoom lens on the drone rather than descending close to the whale. And also we would keep our drone horizontally away from the animal to again minimize any noise impact on the individual. Flo, if you want to carry on.
Yeah. So we did a couple flights, and we could obviously see that this whale was indeed alive, which was really important because, according to our contact with the government, they had assumed that it was correct that it had died. So we wanted to definitely call them immediately once we found Bird, to tell them it is in fact alive, and we really want to organize rescue. So that was really important for us to let them know. So we did a couple flights, and on the first flight, we could see that there was indeed a rope wrapped around the tailstock, so where the body of the whale attaches to the fluke. And there was just one rope there, but you could see there were some red grooves in its tailstock. So clearly it had been entangled for a while, which we knew, and that had left some scars and some raw flesh, which was really unfortunate to see. But it was really lucky that this is a relatively minor entanglement. Like, it wasn't, no entanglement is good, but it wasn't wrapped around its whole body or restricting its pec fins or anything. So that was good to know, and we could let the authorities know that it was just one line wrapped around the tailstock, which is really important. And then on the second flight, we actually found some scarring on its its face and across its back. So clearly this line had moved throughout the day from its head back towards its fluke, which is often where a rope will get caught around a humpback. So that was really important information. We relayed that, and then we just continued to watch Bird. So we just made sure that it kept breathing and it wasn't moving too much. If any behavior changes were going to happen, we wanted to be there to relay that information. So we watched it for a while, and then we saw some boats coming out towards the whale. And at first we were a bit concerned because there were some fishing boats, and we hoped that they wouldn't distress the whale. But actually, it was really, really nice that actually our contact with the government, using our information, were able to send out a rescue boat. And this rescue boat was a SARS boat. So in Iceland, they are the people who would rescue you if you had an accident at sea. And so they're not necessarily trained for whale disentanglement, but they are trained for other human rescues. So they were able to come out, and they really, really carefully maneuvered around the whale. And with the help of 3 other fishing boats, they were able to assess the situation. They picked up the buoy a couple times to hope to loosen it from the whale. And they spent about, 20 minutes really carefully maneuvering. And finally, they got a stick with a hook out so they could lift up the rope. and Bird managed to wiggle out of it. And then we could see Bird. It was really, really nice. We could see her fluke down. I shouldn't say her. We don't know if she's a girl or a boy, but we saw the whale fluke down, lifting its tail, which we hadn't seen it do. So that was really, really nice, and a nice confirmation that the rope had been removed. And then it was amazing that you could hear, even from land, we were like a kilometer away on land watching this, but you could hear the like cheers on the boats, which is so, so nice, because you could tell everyone, including the fishermen, who often are villainized, because they're the ones leaving using long lines to fish and different things. So it was really nice to see how much they cared about helping this whale and how involved they got. So yeah, it was really, really amazing.
That's fantastic. I'm glad that it was able to be a mostly positive story and everybody was able to come together and help disentangle this whale. Have you seen Bird again, Judith?
No, sadly not. I think the WhaleWise team kind of watched it swim as fast as it could out of the fjord. And sadly, on the remaining tours of the season, we never saw it again. But it's one, I mean, it might not want to come back there, but that's one lucky whale considering how it was 5 hours seems a long time. I'm sure it was a long time for the poor whale, but of course we know that when whales become entangled, they don't die within 5 hours. It usually takes them weeks or months to die. So that's why they were like, I'm sure this whale is not dead after 5 hours. And it's such a cool story because that was one lucky whale. We're only one whale watch boat, so the fact that we saw it happen when it happened, and these guys were around to come and help, and then they got it out without the proper disentangling equipment. We were all very, very happy.
As you say, especially Judith, I think that was something quite extraordinary when you think that, this is a unit that is not specialized in any type of disentanglement of large mammals. And they have done such incredible work, which is so risky in itself, right? I mean, you have to approach a huge animal that is in distress and can obviously be very unpredictable. And yet they did risk a lot, obviously, and managed to save it, which is, incredible.
I think also Bird was lucky in a few ways because the weather that day was very good. And if the weather hadn't been good, Judith may not have gone out on a tour and seen it get entangled. So we may never have known that it was entangled in the first place. But also it made the rescue possible, the weather, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to get that close, that carefully to the whale.
Yeah, that's a very good point because weather in Iceland is interesting to say the least. But it was a perfect conditions all day for it to have happened as it was. The whole, the first thing is unfortunate that it happened, but the rest of it couldn't have gone more like clockwork in a way, I think.
Yeah. Well, because also you guys need specific weather to be able to fly, right? So
that's correct. It was a bit marginal for us that day. It was a little bit windy, but we did manage to drone. Luckily, the whale itself Bird wasn't really far away from coast, so the flight was also quite short, which again, good for us for that situation.
This is the luckiest entanglement story ever, I guess.
And so nice to have a positive whale story from Iceland because we all know the negative ones and maybe they will end soon. But it's nice to show that, of course, Icelandic people care about the animals just as much as many of us do.
That's great. Thank you guys for sharing that with me. I'm glad that we were able to get together and tell the story, but also that it obviously went well. And that everything worked out for Bird and also for you guys experiencing that. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add about this encounter or anything else?
If I see Bird next year, I'll try and remember to do a story for Whale Tales.
Please let us know.
Yeah.
I know we talked before, Judith, about Iceland and its numbers, but is Bird in Happy Whale? Or anywhere?
It is in Happy Whale, and I haven't had any notifications from Happy Whale that it's been seen anywhere else since it happened. But it was only a few weeks ago, and
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of Iceland where there's no whale watching, where they can disappear to, but it has been seen in other whale watching places around Iceland prior to this year. It had been in our fjord a long time this year. So yeah, hopefully somebody will see it again, and yeah, Happy Whale will tell us.
Yeah, I will link to Bird's Happy Whale profile in the show notes as well. So if people want to periodically check, keep an eye on the animal, and we'll see what happens. Yeah.
I think, though, maybe we can also just a little bit touch on, what usually one can do if ever gets to the situation of finding an entangled animal like this. Maybe I'll just start by the fact that if that ever happens to anybody, I think what is really important is that you don't go yourself and try to disentangle the whale. I think that's really important. Basically, this is an incredibly dangerous thing to do, both for the whale, both for you. And it is better to really reach out for help that either is specialized in that type of situation or can actually reach out to people who can do the job.
Yeah, I would also say if you ever find a whale that you think might be entangled, so some of the things you can do is you can record the location, which is really important. If you can get a GPS point, that's really good. If you can keep an eye on the whale, that's also really good. So you have updated information about its location. Also, noting its behavior is also really important. All these,
and generally, if it breathes, it's still alive.
Yeah.
For
it
sure.
can, to be fair, it can be difficult if the whale is
to tell.
floating and very tired.
Just pointing it out.
But
it also depends how far you are, maybe, and how good
Mm-hmm.
binoculars you have.
Yeah. Generally, if it's breathing, it's doing okay. But yeah, so that's just a few things you can do, and then always you can contact local authorities, and they'll know who to contact, regardless of what country you're in and everything. As long as you contact someone in an authority role, then it's pretty good.
Yeah, and we'll put the link we have to all of the entanglement marine animals in distress page that we have, which can be updated if anybody out there sees that it's missing a country on there. Please do let us know. But we have as many as we can on there with different countries about who to call and or contact when you see any kind of animal in distress as entangled or also dead, because that's a completely different situation that still needs to be dealt with if possible.
Exactly.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so it was a really cool encounter, and the option to. I was so glad to get to hear this story. We will put Bird's Happy Whale profile up in the show notes so that we can hopefully see if they show up again, and as well as Judith and WhaleWise's social handles, and Judith Scott Photography and WhaleWise, one word, if you're interested. And we'll also link to our Animals in Distress page, which does have links and numbers to call for various countries if you see a marine mammal in distress. As always, if you know of one that is not on our site, let us know and we'll add it to that.
Indeed.
So that was my sneaky
cool.
surprise, because I didn't know when that recording was going to happen. But it was this morning. It was whales
awesome.
all the way down today.
I love a good news story like that. It makes me so happy.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ashley, now you got to follow that up with your favorite encounter of the year.
Oh goodness. Well, I mean, any encounter with Chainsaw is a favorite for sure. And getting to see him in a tea party was really cool. Right at the mouth of Howe Sound, by the way.
That's so close to my house.
I know.
Not actually, but
and then I will say there was a day where we had Malachite, who, by the way, I do consider to be my nephew, so I'm just humanizing all of the whales, because I babysat him. When he was a baby, his mom basically left him with the boats, and so I got to babysit Malachite a few times. And of course, that probably should have been an indication that something was maybe wrong with mom, because she disappeared the next year. She didn't come back. But he's still my nephew because I babysat him. and I got to see him hanging out with another whale called Callisto. They were just breaching off the hook, like just would not stop. It was wild. And you can always pick out Malachite even when you can't see his tail because he's got these little white tips to his pectoral fins.
Aww. He's like a little minky humpback.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I actually, honestly, I can't remember now because it was so many years ago, but I feel like Callisto was the humpback that I saw teaching her calf how to peck slap.
There is, this one was Callisto humpback, not Callisto.
Yeah, no, it's Callisto humpback that I think.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I saw a humpback mom. It is a whale tail. I'm just not sure that I remember which whale it was. So Lindsay can correct me, / all of our listeners can correct me because it is one of my stories on whale tails.
The one teaching the calf how to do slaps.
Yeah, how to do peck slaps.
That was Quattro.
Oh, okay, not Callisto.
Yeah,
good story.
Yeah,
Quattro, also known as Heather, also known as Killer.
Like Heather, the main, like the humpback Heather that is always around.
Yeah.
I did
Heather
not know
and
that.
Quattro are the same animal.
Huh. I'm gonna update that website.
There we go.
That we
Sounds
have.
good. She sadly, although some of my colleagues who are definitely going to be listening do not agree with me, but she's gone missing as well.
Aww.
Yeah, NeoWise was her last calf before she disappeared. But yeah, Malachite breaching.
Yeah, that's fun.
Callisto breaching.
That's very fun.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
And the legs, always a good time.
And the legs, yeah, that was. And it wasn't like just a small group.
Yeah.
It was such a big group that it was just like, what is life right now?
Any leg is the best day. Even just one.
True.
Dolphin!
Come on.
Well, we are very happy that you had so many amazing days on the water and that you came and shared them with all of us and our listeners. Thank you.
You are so welcome. Thank you guys for coming out with me this year.
It was the best.
It could have been better, but it was good.
No, but also, okay, so listeners, maybe you, like I did when I was a child, lived near water, but it wasn't salt water, and you were sad because salt water that's not salt water, a lake, does not have whales as much as you want it to. But you know what it turns out any kind of water is good for, even if it doesn't have whales in it, and that being on a boat on said water is good for? Naps. Boat naps are the best thing ever. Naps, N-A-P-S, which means sleep, which is something I do not get a lot of in my life. So
yes, we did not disturb you when you.
No, thank you so much. It was the most amazing thing ever. And listeners, don't worry, I did not sleep through the whales, and I also did not sleep through Ashley's incredible interpretation because I would never disrespect you like that. But you, like a good naturalist, let people just enjoy the scenery on the way back, and I slept like a baby, and it was the best.
Yeah. Yeah, boat naps are absolutely epic, and sometimes I wish that I could do it as well. But it's also like for anybody who's like, oh, boat tours are boring enough that you go to sleep. It's just that you're getting so much fresh air like shoved up your nose.
Yeah, and like white noise.
And it's more fresh air.
Like,
yeah, you got the white noise, and it's more fresh air than most people are used to. And that actually can make you quite tired when you're not used to it.
And the vibration,
and then
and the lulling motion,
the white noise, the movement of the boat, all of it is like a perfect storm for a snooze.
If you're not used to being out looking for and finding whales, it's like kind of overstimulating.
It's a lot of
in the best way possible, but
a lot of work.
It's a lot. Yeah.
You also just burn more calories just standing on a boat than standing on ground.
Balancing. And naps are great anytime.
Exactly.
So if you can have one, and especially for us because we were whale watching like practically past our houses in some cases, or like not where the whales were, but on our way back to the dock.
I know this scenery.
Like it wasn't unlike whale watching somewhere when you're not in your hometown. the travel to and from the whale watch location was less exciting for us than for
some guests have like either just gotten off a flight or like are still jet lagging. So yeah, I mean they're all getting, and then they'll still sleep really well that night too.
Because you're all like windswept and excited from your whale encounters, and it's just the best.
All that adrenaline starts to seep out after the whales. Yeah, for sure.
So thank you for an excellent trip, an excellent nap facilitation, and a most excellent podcast episode.
Oh, thank you guys.
Where can people find you these days?
Well, I'm still on Instagram as @VitalOcean, but I haven't really done much with it for a bit. I'm going to try to get better again. But what I post more of is slow motion water videos on TikTok. Yeah, have you not seen them? They're great. They're super peaceful. It'll help you sleep, Nicole.
Okay, but I don't have TikTok because I am old.
Well, no, I mean
that's not true.
It's got nothing to do with being old or young. It's a dangerous place to be. It literally, time gets wasted very easily. But yes, I have a TikTok called Slow Mo Water.
I love that. I will look it up because there's ways to watch TikTok without having it, and I will do that, and I will have a wonderful sleep.
That's really it. That's where you can find me.
Thank you so much, Ashley. It was just so great to catch up. I know we saw you in the summer, which is more often than we usually are
it's true.
able to see you. But yeah, you were working and we were whaling and napping.
Whaling and napping. I like it.
So this was a great catch up. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. It's always lovely. It's always lovely hanging out with you guys. So thanks for having me back.
Sad as it is time to say goodbye to Ashley. We would love to hear your thoughts on this episode or any episode, so please visit our website, whale-tales.org, and find links to all the social media handles you couldn't handle so that you can drop us a line.
You can also head to our website to subscribe to the podcast, learn more about supporting us and becoming a patron, and check out almost 1,500 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories. There's lots of Ashley's stories out there.
So
that's whale-tales.org. Tales like the stories, not tales like the animal.
And if you've seen a cetacean, we would love to add your story to our library. You can click the share link on our website, or you can contact us on social media. We're at whaletales_org, or you can email us a voice memo and tell us all about your incredible cetacean encounter.
Finally, we want to acknowledge that we recorded today's episode on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations, as well as the homelands of the Tsawwassen First Nation.
Thank you all so much. We hope you have a whaley great day.